gentlemen, and welcome to this India at 75 Fireside Chat series, I Have a Dream, with none other than Sunil Kant Munjal, the past president of CII and chairman of Hero Enterprise. And I think, you couldn't have thought of someone better than Sunil to really not only take us through what India has achieved in its 75 years of independence, but more so what we can use this as a building block for the next 25 years. Sunil is someone, of course, I think who has not only covered the history of India since independence, but someone who's deeply interested in the history of what India has been over thousands of years. And I think our conversation today will also tap a little bit into how we leverage that past of ours and create a future that we can all be really proud of. Sunil is, of course, a person who needs no introduction, but I will do the needful. He's a second generation member of a family that resonates with India and, in what India wants to be to the world, the hero to the world, the Hero Group. And I think it's India's premier automotive group, as we know it, the world's largest bicycle manufacturer, going to the largest two-wheeler maker, and continuing to be a very, very strong brand, not only in India, but globally. Sunil is the chairman of the Hero Enterprises now, and his interests are in insurance distribution, steel making, real estate, corporate training, and a very active investment office. You've seen his face many, many places when it comes to new age startups, especially, mature businesses now that are growing. And, as we always talk of, India's future will be in probably new areas of business where we'll probably become the largest in the world, and areas like, financial services, consumer facing businesses, which have been a large part of his portfolio, but also structured debt, public market investments, private equity investments, and others. Sunil has always been one intellectual person. I've always enjoyed historically chatting with you, Sunil, on so many aspects, given that, the boards of the IIM Ahmedabad, the India School of Business, so many leading schools of commerce, not only the Sriram School of Commerce, but also many, many other areas like University of Tokyo. You had geopolitical background with your role with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, where you're a trustee, and so many areas that I can keep going on. Many people have your background, but most importantly, at least to this conversation, you have been a past president of CII and the All India Management Association. And, CII has taken this upon itself, that how industry can actually bring together multiple stakeholders, create a convening platform to envision an inclusive, developed India of the future, and really define what an India of the future could look like. And you have played such a key role, in shaping that and making that happen. So with those words, Sunil, I'm going to kickstart our conversation. As I said, please feel free to share your dreams, your aspirations, the way it really comes across in your mind. And I know you have a very imaginative mind. And maybe taking that forward, we'll structure this conversation a little differently. And if I were to plant you right now into 2047, right, and say, here we are celebrating India at 100. We're 15th August, 2047, and you're standing there. What do you see around you?
So first, thank you very much, Rajan. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and through you to many others, both CII members and others. I think this exercise, which was triggered by Professor Prahlad, C.K. Prahlad, many years ago, I think is a very valuable piece of work that CII has done. And you have been one of the key drivers of this, Rajan. So big thank you to you for driving this big initiative. And if I think back, in the year I was president CII, 2004-05, is also when the World Economic Forum and CII ran an exercise to imagine what India would be like in 2025, I think. That was an interesting exercise. And they created 3 scenarios, as you know. So let me take a minute before I switch to being in India in 2047. Since your theme is I have a dream. So for a while now, I have had a dream for India. In India where there is no hunger, in India where there is no poverty, in India where males and females work in equal measure across all aspects of society, trade, business, civil society. In India, where the disparity that we see at this moment is actually gone. In India, which truly plays its role on the global stage in geopolitics, in giving out the Indian ethos and philosophy coming from ancient times, which when India was considered the world leader, that we are back to that place. I have a dream of an India where our education system truly becomes a leading education system, giving all Indians an opportunity to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that's what truly education ought to do, not be driven only by academics, but with a much broader sense of education, which includes adventure, it includes sports, includes our ability to absorb what goes on around us in society. It's therefore important for us to look at things like arts and culture as an inherent part of our education system. So I know this is not my dream alone. There are many, many others who talk of India playing a key role in the world. I do hope that by the time we get to 100 years, that we are in that position. And I'm glad you're asking me to imagine myself standing on 15th of August, 2047. I would hope that all our universities have a department of Imagineering then, that they make us not just look at engineering, but our imagination for what can be done, for true possibilities, that there is effective altruism available in the nation, that the country looks at things like Moore's law having been turned upside down, because while we will continue to shorten the period, there will be a point in time when singularity will be hit, and it's not too far in the distant future. So if I'm in 2047, I would imagine we are beyond singularity, and machines today are able to do many jobs that we as humans considered normal for hundreds of years. My ability to come today for this event to where I'm sitting right now was driven by a device which brought me here on just my thinking, this is where I want to be. And our ability to transport and logistics has been driven from a 14% cost of logistics in Indian trade and business to 5% because we started using rapid waterways. It was only an idea 25 years ago. Today, we are using them rapidly. We've also gone beyond the drones being used just for moving things to significantly enhanced usage to reach across the nation, to every part of the nation, as now has access to facilities which were otherwise considered only available in the best urban parts of India. Our increased reach through the airports, through heliports, through drone ports, which has been developed over the last 25 years, has truly transformed India's reach and the people's ability to do things which were otherwise considered hard, in fact, if not completely impossible. The Indian family system also has undergone a change. From shrinking to nuclear families, we saw distributed families across the world. Indian families today operate as families while in different geographies, but celebrate together because technology, system, and our presence allows us to. So we are today in a unique place. We are not yet where we want to be in terms of net zero carbon, etc. But, and that's a promise our Prime Minister had made, we will be in 2070. But the pace at which we are moving, it looks like we will be many years ahead, maybe 10, maybe even more than 10 years ahead in our schedules. I'm going to stop here. Otherwise, I can carry on only on this if you like.
No, this is such an exciting statement. You know, you made Department of Imagineering. I mean, it's so true, right? One can't create anything that one can't imagine. I mean, it all starts with the brain, the mind, and I think we have barely tapped into the potential of that. Even like as we speak, we know we are using 7-8% of that capacity, and there's tremendous innovation going to expand that. And just since you mentioned imagineering and it brought out this whole brain thing, when we talk of climate change and we talk of energy, I think the fastest and the smartest product on earth, which works on the least amount of energy, is probably our brain and our imagination. We eat a little bit of food and just see what we can create, right? So I think a very, very powerful thought there, Sunil, to kickstart this conversation. But as we look at India, as we look at the future of India, all the things that you described, right? Especially your dream, when it comes to, a hunger-free, poverty-free India. Right? Maybe we won't be able to wait till 2047 for that. It's something that we need to move, aggressively in the near future. So if you really look at what are those key enablers, right, that will make that change happen, particularly, if you look at different stakeholders, maybe that's one way to describe, the role of government, role of industry, role of society, or any other way that you think will enable this outcome to be realized sooner than later.
Let me put out one idea here. And then we can expand and on. I'm going to talk of just one idea first, because we are working on growing our services. We are growing on improving our manufacturing, creating in the right environment around it through policy, through physical infrastructure, etc. There is one hidden gem in India. If you think back a little bit in history, since you mentioned my interest in looking at civilizations, not too far back, again, I'm talking from the civilizational point of view, India was considered the premier trading nation in the world. This is at the end of the Mughal period. This is a recorded history. So I'm not talking any secret or mystery here, that when the British came in, India had different numbers are showing between 23 to 25% world trade and almost a similar number of the world GDP. But if you think about what is it we were trading, by the way, other than a little bit of spices, a fair bit of spices, the big thing was our artisanal skills, our handicrafts produced from our artisanal skills. So textiles, woodwork, ivory, carvings. So we were a real leader in using the artisanal skills and the products made by them to position India as a leading global nation in the world. Over a period of time, the skill that lies mostly in the rural areas has lost touch with the markets which are in the urban areas and overseas. So the products being produced there are products which we don't consider relevant in our lives today. So if we can do two things, if on the one hand, we can increase and improve the capacity of the artisans with more modern practices, less polluting practices, safer practices, etc., and give them capability of design of what the consumer wants today and connect them to the markets, you can actually create economic opportunities for 150 million individuals, by the way. This is more than you can imagine for any 4, 5, or even 10 industries put together. So which is why I said I will start with only one idea first. I can go to many others. So if you can imagine that, what does it do? It creates a rural economy which is a lot more dynamic than it is today. And this depends, it also reduces the dependence on agriculture, which in a sense, I have to say sadly, is causing more poverty than creating success. Because the number of people dependent on agriculture and the contribution of agriculture in our economy, contribution is shrinking. The number dependent is very high. 54% of India's population is directly or indirectly dependent on agriculture. So if we can move them from agriculture, put them on other artisanal products, crafts, which are contemporary, which you and I will buy and use in our homes, in our offices, in our urban infrastructure, you can actually create an amazing set of consumers. You will create the largest growth market in consumers in the world. That will be a bigger growth market in consumers than all of the US and all of Europe put together. It will be at a different price line. It will demand different products and services, but it will be there.
Yeah, no, I think, again, a very powerful thought and very aligned, Sunil, to the thinking of, India at 75, which was really the fortune resides at the bottom of the pyramid, make them produce first, empower them, generate livelihoods, and then they'll become the largest consumers. And to your hand point, right? I mean, today in the world, when you go and you see something handmade, it's actually a premium product, right? I think it's just our narrative, or maybe the ecosystem within which we work more of that in our NGO sector, etc. If we were able to make it mainstream, I think it really will trigger.
We have taken on an initiative to actually try and do this, by the way.
Would love to hear that.
The Serendipity Arts Foundation, which runs our multidisciplinary arts festival, has done somewhere between 50 to 100 projects across different parts of India to see the possibilities. And what we found was actually amazing. What you can do with just a little bit of input is transformative for the product and for the artisan's family itself. So they can turn this into a full-fledged profession where they and their families can depend on it. And it can also dampen a little bit of the massive migration that is taking place from the rural to the urban areas and putting pressure on urban infrastructure, which is not quite equipped for the current population that we already have. So it can have multiple knock-on effects which are positive. And I will, if we have time, talk about what we are trying to do in the new institution that we're building in Delhi, which will do this on a permanent basis here for all art forms.
No, I think that's a very, very important initiative that you've talked about, because it is also a little different from what is the generic thinking of large other industry groups, So I think it's a good area for us to kind of deepen a little bit conversation and focus on, because it is also, I think, aligning with this new reality where we see this young generation, we see a decentralized world, we see blockchain, individuals getting more empowered, and in a world like that where we have creators, we have artisans, we have a rich history, how do we really use this to create, a position of global leadership? So I think it's a great area for us to also, think and work forward. And in a way, it also links to, another topic that I know is very important to you and you're passionate about is the word innovation. It's really at the end of the day, a culture of innovation, for us to move into our Amrit Kal and, head for the next 25 years. And I think this could be one, of course, aspect of where, innovation at a macro level for a country like ours can yield results. But, going deeper into that, right, how important, do you think innovation is, and what can we do to accelerate that, especially given that we've got the opportunity to do so in India today?
So first, thank you for saying this, because I do believe the reason I did not go on the typical normal industry services, because a lot of work is being done and that will take care of itself. And I'm hoping we will move a little bit faster in some of the areas in which we are slow, and we will be able to remove the hurdles that we can clearly see in some of the others. But this is an untapped area. And you're absolutely right. The only way to do this would be using the most contemporary tools of innovation and technology together, along with the skills that already reside. So using the local skills and the local population, we can do a complete transformation. Innovation across the globe has been seen to be one feature and factor which has allowed nation states to progress or not, depending on how much innovation they're able to do. One of the things which has been well known for India has been our jugaad system that we make do. But we are seeing more and more that this is getting better organized, becoming more productive, becoming more efficient, and focused also on public service. I think this combination of individuals being able to benefit, corporates, even though very small, tiny companies, I'm calling them corporates because they will be corporate structures, being able to benefit, but at the same time, massive growth and increase in jobs, in outputs, in prosperity of families, and thereby consumption. It is a virtuous cycle that we need to create. If you think about it, in early 90s, when the reform started, we used to talk of the trickle-down effect. I'm talking of a trickle-down effect and a direct injection, both happening at the same time and coexisting, which can have a massive forward-looking benefit to society at large. This will also connect artisanal skills with the global markets. I'm not just talking of making something for the next village, but being able to sell the product in Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore as much in Tokyo, Paris, and New York at the same time. So the product capabilities, acceptable quality and design, and their linkage with what is considered social practices should be at the best levels in the globe. And that's why innovation and technology is required to be infused in this initiative and effort.
No, I think one area which I think is, not very much talked about as much as we would like to talk, and I know you mentioned it in your Dream for India, is really the role of women, and their participation in the workforce. I mean, I think India is one of the few countries where the participation of women in the workforce is actually declining, despite, our levels of education, etc., going up. Empowering them maybe at a tier 2, tier 3 rural level is another way to look at it, but also truly increase, that participation, because all of these get aligned, in some shape and form. And it might be good to capture some thoughts from you, on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've said this publicly many times, so I'm only repeating myself. It is a little bit of a shame that the much smarter half of our population, which by the way is the women, is not currently in the productive mainstream. And again, not for a minute am I suggesting that what they do at home, those who stay at home or are homemakers, do not have a valuable role, because that is amazing what it does for building society and homes and families. But there are millions and millions of them who have the capability, the wherewithal. All they need to be given is the opportunity and the facilitating environment to become part of the economic mainstream of the nation. We've seen this world over. We've seen it in India. We've had banking leaders, we've had political leaders, we've had manufacturing leaders, we've had scientists who are women all across the board in all professions. We have seen women are amazingly productive. And once they are focused, they can be fantastic assets. And I think that is essential for us to not just have to mandate on our boards and our companies, but to accept as something that is good for all of us. It's not just good for that individual, it's good for the organization, it's good for society, and it's certainly good for the nation. That is what India needs to drive this energy going forward, if it has to be a leading nation in the world, which it must be.
Yeah, I think, it's such an important part of the, future of India. And, even our Honorable Prime Minister talks of Nari Shakti and Yuva Shakti, right? These are the two engines of growth. And your person is very passionate about, you invest in entrepreneurs, you look at the future of India through the lens of a young Indian. How do you see that complementary aspect, also panning out along with the Nari Shakti?
I'm going to repeat one comment for the previous question, and then I'll come back to the young. I've often said the women are not just the much smarter half. They're smart enough to let the men now and then feel that they're smarter. and we need to recognize that, by the way. And I think it is amazing what they can do, what that energy combined with what we are already doing can actually supplement. Coming back to the young, you're absolutely right. I do believe our future is in very good hands. I am a great optimist about India. I am excited about our future because we are doing some things which are phenomenal anywhere in the world. And right through history, if you go back far back in history, we were the leading nation in science and technology and navigation and logistics and all of the rest. But today we had fallen behind over the last few hundred years. But I am so excited about what the young people are demonstrating. And you're right, because of what we do, I come across lots and lots of them. Sometimes their ideas are so amazing. It excites you, it sometimes also scares you that, is this even possible? Can this happen? But having seen some of them, often many of them succeed. Sadly, not all of them succeed in these ventures, but which is the very nature of startups. And this is one of the societal changes as a nation that we need to bring in, is accept failure as a part of learning. Because in our society, we've had one big challenge that failure was always looked down upon. I'm glad that we introduce laws like bankruptcy, etc., to bring back assets into productive use. The most critical and important asset is the one you talked about, is the human mind and brain. So if the human mind and brain can be kept in good shape and good form and good spirit, you have the opportunity to create a unique neural network of ideas, of people, of energies, which can truly catapult India forward into a nation which becomes a desirable and a place where other people will want to come in and work, other people will want to come and learn, other people want to come in and get engaged. And these young people are demonstrating this capability, not just in startups, they're demonstrating this across the board. Some of the practices you see in agriculture, some of the new practices you see in arts and culture, some of the practices you see in diplomacy by some of the younger people are absolutely wonderful. And by that, I'm so very encouraged. I see some of them coming from parts of India which a few years ago we would never have imagined possible. Coming from small villages in Bihar and Odisha and UP and Punjab and Haryana, but with ideas that are real. And they're able to demonstrate this through practice, through actually putting this in practice on the ground. And as I said, the wonderful thing is those who fail don't just give up. They get up, dust themselves, and come back again, and sometimes again and again. And that is what, for me, is the most wonderful, endearing, and enduring feature of India today. Yeah. That the young are our real hope.
No, and I think it aligns really well to your, also again, to your little aspiration of, having people to be the best version of themselves and, accepting failure as a part of learning, as you rightly put it. At a time when learning is itself being redefined, right? Education is being redefined because you're talking of lifelong learning today, not a career for a lifetime, it's a lifetime of careers, new age skills, so many changes happening, and you're at the helm of so many, leading educational initiatives. And somewhere we also talk of India becoming a Vishwa Guru to the world by 2047. So some thoughts around that, Sunil, when it comes to our education system, our learning philosophies, are they changing on the ground? Is there something we should be able to accelerate in the short term that will enable us to build these capacities correctly, over the next 25 years?
I'm glad you actually raised this. To my mind, the only sustainable way of making a positive change in any society is through education. And education comes in many forms. The best reform, and to my mind, if implemented, the biggest single reform India would have made since 1947 is the new education policy that we announced recently. The national education policy recognizes that education is not academics alone, that you have to accept things like adventure, sports, debating, learning, swimming and badminton as a part of education. And I think it allows you to appeal to both the left and the right brain together. And that's what we have to do. That's the kind of leaders we have to build who will be able to tackle any problem with ease and tackle multiple fields at one time. Because too much of our education became a unilateral focus. And I think this new education policy is the first step. I do hope the implementation of this is done well and done evenly across the nation, because I think that will be absolutely critical for India to get the best possible deal for itself. The compact that we have, so let me take it in two parts. The current compact of industry with society has to change, because for too long now, the model that we followed, the market model that we followed, allowed the whole world to improve, but the top grew so much higher than the bottom half. It created a massive disparity while still leaving millions in abject poverty, especially in countries like ours. So the compact has to be a much more holistic approach to growth, to profit, to profitability. Is how do I impact the communities around me positively has to be one. And I think our education system must not only teach things like history and theology and technology, it must also teach empathy. It must also teach attitude. It must also teach communication skills, because all of these are important for an India going forward, because India wants to be understood by the entire world. if we are to be a global player, you have to understand others, and equally others have to understand you. And I'm hoping, the reason I wore this is because I'm hoping that in 1947, this dress will be much more accepted around the globe as formal dress, and our greeting will be a much more common greeting that we will see around the globe. And I think it's important for us to understand our young too must look at this as their strength and not otherwise. Therefore, it is essential that our education encompasses all of these in the way it approaches the learning process itself.
No, I think it's
I'm sorry, I'm giving you much broader and longer answers than you're asking. I do believe it's important.
And it's so beautifully put, because while we are taking Indianness to the world, and really getting the world to understand the depth of India, and like what you said, whether it's the outfit, the way of greeting, and pandemic showed, right? Namaste was probably the best way to greet people. And
you had leaders of country after country saying this is the right greeting, and I heard it myself from the leaders in the UK and France and a few other countries.
But at the same time, it is also important for us and others in India to understand and appreciate how the rest of the world operates. Right?
Absolutely.
Like the outfit that I'm wearing maybe today may not be, and I normally wear the Indian one, but today I chose to wear a jacket.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe it triggers a conversation here. Because
I'm going to add one more thing to this, since we talked of artisanal skill and crafts. This has come from Kashmir. So there's no reason why we should only wear, French silk pieces here, and why not the Indian artisanal skills?
Absolutely, no. And it is bringing the worlds together, right? India, if we really want to be, like many have defined in this journey, a super partner to the world, for example, got to be able to take everybody along, right? And it's important, therefore, those sensibilities also get built in India. And I think, one other short-term area, which I think where opportunity for India is massive, right? The world is talking China +1, and, how does India's manufacturing sector, for example, we got PLI schemes, we got a lot happening. And we cannot not talk about manufacturing with you, Sunil, having created such large scale in manufacturing, driving this price performance, affordability, for the world kind of, phrase, out of India, frugal innovation. I think all of that is a big opportunity for India. We often say 2047, the world should be talking of an India +1 strategy. Literally make so much progress there. But in the short term, if I look at next, say, 3 years, 5 years, how do we get a larger part of the manufacturing share of the world GDP? What can we do? While we have, discussed so many other aspects, it's also a place where a lot of our youth will become, more employable and also integrated, into global supply chains.
Yeah. So there are 3 or 4 aspects to this, as you know. One is the regulatory framework, which should become one that encourages people to start enterprises, makes it easy to run enterprises, and God forbid it needs to shut down, to have a smooth process for shutdown as well. That's on the regulatory side. The second is on capabilities and understanding of the needs of the consumer, the customer, and the user of the product that is manufactured. At this moment, we are in a transitory phase. At one point, we were in an era of shortages all the way till the 1980s, early 1990s, where anything you manufactured would sell because there was a shortage. Then came the time when consumers had a choice, whether it was in buying a motorcycle or buying a car or buying a refrigerator or TV. And we suddenly have a plethora of choices. Now, I think it's the feature plus age which became a unique requirement. So what is called mass customization? You do mass production, but within that, you're also able to customize at the same time. So technologies which are coming in the new generation of manufacturing, whether it's printed products, 3D printed products, or it's distributed manufacturing, that allows us a quantum leap forward from where we are. So we must fully embrace these technologies. We must not only embrace them, we actually need to start becoming a leader in them. And the third bit is building almost like a neural network across the globe, to ensuring that you don't try and build walls. As you say, we want to be self-sufficient, but don't put a wall around ourselves, as we have done in the 50s and the 60s. You need to connect with the rest of the world. You need to be a part of the value chain of the globe. And since you talked of the very short term, that is the single most important thing for India, is to become part of the global value chain. I can talk about what should happen 20 or 50 years out, but those are separate conversations. The first thing is to position ourselves. Since you spoke of China Plus, I think we have a unique opportunity. We had two earlier, which we did not get full advantage of. Countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, even Bangladesh took a bigger advantage than we did. I think we are much more aware today as a nation. Both the government, the departments of the government, and industry are pitching in together to go and do customized pitches to companies to come in and to ensure that we are not just doing low-cost manufacturing. We are not just low-priced products. That we are a valuable part of this value chain. And please note what I'm saying. It's essential. So therefore, our manufacturing processes themselves has to go through a metamorphosis to be a step ahead of where they are today. It is absolutely doable. It is going to be a tough transition, but that's what success is about, is making the tough choices and then making them work.
No, and I think, it's a very opportune time, right, in the world. And, geopolitically also, the world is looking at India. And see today, India has got a very strong position in a time of uncertainty, conflict. Every time you read or you hear about India's position in the world, I think we have an opportunity here. Yeah. And, I think there is a need for this too.
If you do the right thing, and you're right, today we have the lowest GDP in the G20. Since we are currently this year leading the G20, we have the lowest GDP amongst all these nations. I'm hoping in the next 25 years itself, we will catapult this forward. We will not be the largest or the highest GDP in 25 years, but we can be well on our way as soon as we are quickly able to eradicate poverty, because that is essential. That's the essential first step that we have to do while we launch more satellites, while we build our capabilities on global tech. At the same time, the bottom end has got to be taken care of. So it's this twin engine that India needs to work at, which will allow us to do this magic.
Yeah, and I think the bottom end also agriculture, like you rightly said, is 54% of our, of our productivity, of our production and the GDP. How do you see that shaping up? Because that's going to be critical, in this journey.
So in some ways, that's the easiest thing to do. And other ways, it's the most difficult thing to do. Because agriculture, for the right reasons, has been treated like a holy cow. So we have not made much change to the regulations around agriculture for a long, long time. And it is overdue. The government tried last year and the year before last, and unsuccessfully, it created a confusion rather than understanding of where agriculture needs to go in India. We have clear examples in front of us. At one time we had done a comparison between Israel and India and crops that are common between our two countries. We found at the lowest end, I forget the exact number now, they were 4 to 5 times higher than us. On the top end, they were like 800 times higher productivity than us in some of the produce. Now, just imagine how much would you actually need to invest to be able to get there? And just imagine the benefit that would flow through the entire system. So the agriculture must not be looked at only the current practice of agriculture, but we again have to look at agriculture plus. Post-harvest must dramatically change. The storage, the logistics, the processing of agri-produce, and in a much healthier, organic, sustainable way. And we have the know-how today. We are doing flood irrigation today in so many of our crops. I don't know what justification there is for a state like Punjab growing non-basmati rice. We have the fastest drop of the water table in the country today. And this was a leading state in the country. There is no reason it cannot go back. So there is work to be done. And it's on all three fronts. It's on the material itself. It's on management practices. It's on the regulatory side. All three need to be worked at, because agriculture can be as big an engine for growth for the nation as manufacturing and services are.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's why I brought that up, as a very complementary aspect. We've talked services, we've talked agriculture, we've talked manufacturing.
Again, use of technology has to be part of this. We have to accept that the new technology, as we call it today, are are part of our lives. We have to start accepting them today as a self-evident truth. It's not something which should be seen as an awkward thing, not something which is scary, because for obvious reasons, anything new is a bit scary. People are apprehensive. But if we run away from it, technology will keep moving. And again, I've used the term often that this is like a road roller. It's riding out there. You are either the road or you're sitting on the road roller. So you have only two options. There's no third option available.
And all stakeholders have to realize that, right? I think sometimes, policymakers, etc. And given that today's technological advancements are going to shape society tremendously. We see Japan talking of a society 5.0, totally driven by technology and AI. And what does that mean in ethics? When a machine is giving instructions to man. And it's so important that we really look at this beautiful future, which is to be built on some chaos.
Rajan, the generation which is going to grow, which is going to live over 100 years is already born now.
Yeah.
So things like genetic engineering, genomics, DNA mapping, DNA correction, CRISPR technologies. By the way, all these technologies are available today already. They're all available. Some are in labs, some are in advanced trials, some are ready. There is, of course, a debate of ethics and morality going on around them, and it's an important debate to have. But I just want to go back for one minute to agriculture. I think it is important to make the key player in this entire equation the farmer. The farmer has to be involved, engaged, and exposed in what the new systems and process are and what they can do. She or he must see the possibilities of the benefit that could flow to them, the challenges they would face, and how to tackle those challenges to move ahead, because our agriculture, like every other product or service, has to be globally competitive. Despite in recent times nations pulling back, globalization is a force you cannot run away from. We will be exposed to the entire world, and therefore we will have to be at least as efficient as others, if not more efficient, and figure out within this way a system of cross support for those who cannot be. How do we carry them forward? How do we create a safety net in the system? As India has begun in the last 15 or 20 years, there are different safety nets. I think it's important to create efficient safety nets for society, for those who do not have access, for those with extreme disparity. And I don't mean only by your name or by your caste. I mean by opportunities. And I think that's where the magic lies again for India. I'm using the word magic again and again, but I think we are at an amazing tipping point for a fantastic transformation.
No, you have created magic, so you know the true meaning of magic, and I think that's really the essence, right? Being able to manifest what you think is truly magic. Imagineering, is a word that you talked about, and I think on one side we have this massive demography of young people who can imagine the future and actually create it as well. On the other side, we will be probably also having 200 million elderly to take care of. Like what you said, what's the society that we can create over the next 25 years? When we have that generation also, we want to, see evolve. So it is definitely complex. But, I think one thing is very clear, Sunil, and we've kind of run out of our 45 minutes, is that, we are positioned, so differently in history today. I mean, I don't think in the history of mankind as a democratic country of 1.4 billion people, made this massive transformation from being an underdeveloped to a developed country, really defining development in the process, right? For the new world.
Let me take a minute, Rajan, before you wind up, and you can cut short this thing to make it 45 minutes if you like. But I think there are two things which I need to say before we wrap this up. One is the reason I mentioned empathy is an essential component of our education is all of us who are fortunate and lucky to have had the kind of opportunities, education, and families and friends that we have a responsibility to reach out to others. So philanthropy should also be taught. Philanthropy should also be encouraged, whether it's through tax breaks or other regulations, as it is done in many other countries. So there are some parts left behind. Some of it will improve through the process and technology, as we were discussing earlier. Some will not. Therefore, philanthropy is an essential component in every Indian individual and family who has the wherewithal themselves, we have to reach out to those less fortunate than us. If India itself as a nation is to grow, all of India has to grow. And you raise a very critical point. We keep talking of Indians, the demographic dividend and a young India. First, to get full advantage of the demographic dividend, we have to train, education, skill all these young people and create opportunities for them. And then everybody does not have to do a post-graduation. But the second part, we will also be the oldest country in the world, not just the youngest country in the world. While we have this year become the largest country in the world in terms of number of people, we have to be sympathetic and empathetic to the fact that there are there are more elderly people in India than there are in any country on the planet. Therefore, we have to equip ourselves for them to live a happy, comfortable, safe life, which is enjoyable, which is productive, and which gives them satisfaction. And they, in turn, should also become productive parts of society. We cannot only imagine somebody who's retired as being out of our system. They are not. They're living longer, healthier. They're living 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years after retirement. So that's one big change that we have to make, is to address the needs of the elderly overall as society, even in our designs of products and services. They are currently not designed for the elderly. So we do need to make this change for all of India to benefit, for India to be where India needs to be.
Yeah, no, luckily we have the young people, who are hungry to go and form companies to solve challenges and problems. And here's the challenge you have posed, which is also a huge opportunity, so while
it's a wonderful opportunity today.
Yeah, while we look at young people, and also we are building new age businesses to engage, Gen Zs and Gen Alphas in new age areas. These are the opportunities and societal challenges, that they can also solve along the way. So, no, I mean, it's been such an exciting discussion, Sunil, and I know we can keep going on and we'll take on a lot of these conversations, but I'm going to keep coming back to you to see how some of these things, we can help realize together in this journey, as CII also embarks on this journey from India at 75 now to India at 100, and see how we can take everybody along. So thank you. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for such a stimulating and enriching conversation. Thanks.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you very much. And good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks. This is really good. And I've recorded it.